I think the challenge with these business models around sustainability is like everyone says they want it, but no one wants to really pay for it.
Coming up, AgTech, have we actually hit the bottom? The Modern Acre is presented by Ambrook. Ambrook provides farmers production insights and tax prep in one place. With modern accounting software built for growing farms that need to know their numbers, with Ambrook, you can track real-time profitability by each enterprise and make expansion decisions based on data, not just gut feel. To learn more, check out ambrook.com or hit the link in our show notes. Tim, it's good to see you. I feel like this is going to be a fun episode where, in Q4 last year, we did a lot of solo episodes or duo episodes. And I just love that format. And I love just talking about what's happening in the market. We've done a few of these recently. And I think it's time we just sit down and really talk about what's happening in ag tech right now. Like, I'm seeing some signs. I'm seeing some signals that we may be at the bottom. Like things, we might have bright future ahead with respect to ag tech. So we're going to dig into that. I'm excited to do it with you.
Yeah, long overdue. I think we have some takes built up, Ty, of like we do these interviews week after week, and there's ag tech news that happens that we don't get a chance to really banter about it. So this will be fun for us.
Tim, before we do this, before we kind of talk about some of these signals and signs we're seeing in the ag tech market, I thought it'd be fun to start with something a little different. Shane Thomas, our friend Shane Thomas over at Upstream Ag Insights, put out recently, he's been collecting over his career professional tips for young professionals entering agriculture. And so he's been kind of gathering these tactics or tools or principles for young people. And he's really been gathering them, and he's now kind of repositioned them as just tools for anyone, for any modern agribusiness professional. And I thought it's an amazing list. I think he has 26 of them, Tim. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of these and like what have been most valuable for each of us in our careers, right? Some of these principles that we live by, that we believe in. So I'm putting you on the spot here, Tim, to choose to go first, and maybe we go back and forth and pick maybe two or three each that we talk about some of these principles that have been most important for us.
Yeah, one that sticks out, Ty, is number 9, build a network. Like we started this podcast over 8 years ago, and like it was all about building a network, building an audience. And like over the past 8 years, like you and I have connected with so many people that have like led to opportunities on the farm, for AgList, for Yield, everything that we're working on. So I think that's been tremendously invaluable. Like when I talk about the podcast, it's like this flywheel that supports everything else that we're working on. And it's really that building the network has been like the most kind of professionally rewarding thing for me outside of my professional career, is kind of building this ag network.
Tim, can I double down on this for a second?
Double click, Ty.
You mind if I double down?
Yeah, do it.
All right. So I think that the podcast actually is a secret weapon for these principles, right? I think that having a podcast actually checks a number of these in one simple, however, I guess it's not simple, but one specific strategy of creating a podcast. So one, like I'll just go through these, like asking questions. We ask questions of really smart people on the guest all the time. Number 2, learn broadly and be curious. That's to be a podcast host. You're inherently learning, right? Because you're learning from other smart people, and you have to be curious. If we weren't curious, Tim, we wouldn't be able to have good conversations with people and learn from people. I'm looking at some of these others. Number 4, create a personal brand. By having a podcast, by us being the faces and voices of that podcast, we're creating a personal brand and getting our name and our brand out there to more people. You said number 9, build a network. We've done that incredibly well by having this podcast. That's allowed us to really supercharge our network. I'm looking if there's any others that are for podcast consistency. Number 21, Tim,
that's where I was going. Every week.
Every week. We have not done a lot of things well in our career, Tim, but with the podcast, we've released an episode every week. I think we've maybe missed 1 or 2 weeks with a birth of a child or extenuating circumstances, but released a podcast every week for 7, 8 years. And that consistency has allowed us to, again, benefit all these other areas. And having that consistency, I think, is huge. And I think that leads me to one other one. So I guess we're doing more than 2 or 3 here, Tim. But number 23, stack the deck. I think having a podcast, building a network, creating a personal brand, being curious, all those things allows us to stack the deck in our favor, because by having the podcast, it helps us with our other ventures, right? Because of the podcast, we were able to launch AgList successfully. By having the podcast, it helps me in my capacity as CEO of Yield Energy, which is connecting with growers on the farm and with other partners in the industry. So being able to have a podcast is a way that we do stack the deck in our favor, that I think is really important.
Totally, Ty. There's so many good ones in here. I feel like we could riff on each of these for an entire podcast episode. Like really like 14, being comfortable in gray areas. Like sometimes there's ambiguity in what you're working on, and being able to be comfortable in gray areas and not having full information and still being able to make decisions, I think is really important as you advance your career. And basically the failure to launch thing of just like waiting to make a decision until you have all the possible inputs, like being able to make decisions with limited information, I think is a superpower.
And I think the last one, Tim, that is jumping out to me is AI as leverage, not as a substitute. I think that's just super important. I think we've been on this AI journey of learning the tools and learning how we can, vibe code things or leverage it for all of our work. And I made a post about this like several months ago, but I think it's the middle group, right? Like there's a camp that's just AI is everything and they forget how to use their brain. And then there's the camp that AI is taking over the world and you don't want anything to do with that, right? And I think the right answer is, as it usually is somewhere in the middle. I think it's important to be learning what's happening with AI and how it is so instrumental and revolutionary, right? In how business is done today and how it's going to be done. But you can't let it replace your brain. So people that are making LinkedIn content that's just like ChatGPT generated, or doing research and not double checking things, right? AI gets stuff wrong all the time. And as long as you know that, that's okay, right? Because then you can work back and forth. And I do that a lot of times when I'm talking to, Claude or ChatGPT is, no, that's not right. And then it kind of corrects itself. And if you're not thinking, you're not using your brain, you're not going to have a great outcome. So I think that's a really good point. And it's obviously a more recent one for these for these principles, but I think one that is super important right now.
Totally. All right, Ty, let's switch gears here a little bit and get into some ag tech news. I think there's a few things we wanted to talk about. The first one was kind of interesting. A company that I previously worked for, Appeal Sciences, was in the news the past couple of weeks, just really talking about the journey they've been on the past couple of years. They were subject to a big misinformation campaign that kind of derailed a lot of what they were working on with retailers in the U.S. When I worked for Appeal, it was kind of the 2020 to 2022 timeframe, like during COVID. So I was there prior to a lot of this happening. But really in 2023, they faced an onslaught of kind of online attacks about the product. There was claims that Bill Gates was behind Appeal and he was looking to poison the food supply. There was a lot of like posts that basically didn't have a lot of credit that took wildfire on social media and led to a lot of retailers, particularly in the US, like basically saying like, hey, this is too much for us. We don't want this negative press. And so they basically stopped operations. And so the company, like at its peak, there was a over $2 billion valuation. They had raised over 500 million in venture capital. Like when I joined, I was employee, I think 200, and like over the couple of years that I was there, ballooned up to like 500, and now they're down to 50. So a big kind of fall from grace, and like really an interesting tale from like one of the darlings of kind of AgTech 1.0, a company that was very highly valued, very highly sought after, and really the impact that like a misinformation campaign could have. Like it is kind of crazy. Like their lawsuit is against Green Smoothie Girl. It's like a $2 billion company, or company that's valued at $2 billion could get taken down by Green Smoothie Girl is kind of crazy. But I think there's some underlying factors here, like beyond the misinformation on like, was there really product market fit? Did the unit economics really work? Because you would think a company that is that highly valued would be a little bit more resilient to some food blogger campaigns. So I think there's more to the story than just like a little bit of misinformation took them down. I think there was some underlying issues where like maybe there wasn't true product market fit, and kind of what was pitched to investors on kind of scale and unit economics maybe wasn't there underlying the business model. I'll pause, Ty.
Yeah, I think you hit the most important point. I think two things are true at once. This misinformation campaign, I think they're doing some like, historic reframing here, to try to blame something other than the core business model, which maybe had some fundamental challenges, right? I think like James went on TBPN last week, I believe, and he talked about this. He talked about the fact that you're creating value by extending the shelf life of fresh produce, right? I think everyone agree there's value creation there. However, in a supply chain so complex with competing incentives, who was going to pay for that value, or who was going to value it, right? Like who was going to value this benefit? And he hit on it in this interview where he talks about how the retailer isn't necessarily like the produce supplier. As long as they're selling, they actually don't care too much about how long it stays ripe, because when there's waste, that means that there's going to be more purchasing of the produce, right? So they're not incentivized to help solve this problem, whereas the retailers may. But it just creates these like there's these competing incentives.
Yeah, it's definitely like a complex system. And I think the challenge with these business models around sustainability is like everyone says they want it, but no one wants to really pay for it. Of like the ultimate benefit of like having a fresher avocado or orange like really falls on the consumer. But there's such price competition at the retail level for consumers, like retailers aren't willing to charge a higher price, and like retailers aren't willing to really pay a premium for it. Where if you had an apple that lasts a couple days longer, that's 25 cents more a pound, like the default in most cases is you're going to go with the cheaper option. Like these are commodities at the retail shelf. And so there's very little price flexibility or sensitivity at the retail level. And there's just really like, it's a low margin business. It's high volume. And how do you extract value there is really challenging. Yeah. Like the phrase that's thrown out is like produce suppliers. Like sometimes they say like the garbage can is their best friend, of like, yeah, if an apple gets thrown away or you lose 2 avocados, like that's going to be a repeat purchase and going to drive more movement and volume. So there's really like inverse incentives in the system. So like they definitely came at it from a noble place. It's just a really challenging business model.
It's interesting now, like they're down to 50 people. It seems like they're not necessarily going to shut doors. James is going on this big PR tour, obviously intentionally. And I think they're looking to figure out how they can kind of build back up. And I think we've seen a few of these now where it's either corporate restructuring, it's bankruptcy, it's downsizing of this is, and getting to the point of this conversation, right? I think we are in kind of this make or break time where we're seeing companies either work through it and like downsize, restructure, and try to figure out if there's a path now back to growth, or companies going out of business, right? We're seeing increasing news about that. Obviously, what happened with Monarch, that got picked up for scraps by Caterpillar. We've seen other news of companies going out of business. And I think these are all signals and signs that we may be at the bottom right now. Some companies are going to go out of business. We expect that. And some companies are doing restructuring and trying to turn the ship and demonstrate growth. And then in addition to all this, Tim, that's happening, we're seeing Y Combinator get in on the action for AgTech and have one of their priorities this quarter be about farming and agriculture and reducing chemical inputs, right? So we're seeing now some of these mainstream investors come back to agriculture again. So there's some of these signals that I think that are pointing to, Tim. I think what we're seeing is potentially the bottom and on our way out of the bottom.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And I think that's always layered with the challenges of the farm economy itself. And like we're at a very interesting period with the farm economy in general and adoption of technology right now, and with margins being really depressed, with rising costs of expenses, with fuel, with fertilizer. It's just a really challenging time. But yeah, seeing this kind of new infusion of new companies, new investment in the space, I think, is encouraging. Like everything is always cyclical. So I think this AgTech 2.0 has the opportunity to learn a lot of what challenged AgTech 1.0.
Tim, did you see the news about the former Volkswagen executive wanting to start an electric tractor company?
I did. Thank you for sending this to me on Friday at 5 p.m. I think I was cracking my first beer of the weekend, and you're just sending me LinkedIn articles about electric tractors. But I was able to dig into it. Pretty interesting.
So the news is former Volkswagen CEO Herbert Diess announces electric tractor with swappable batteries. The former Volkswagen CEO has founded Diess AgTech's AG in Munich with plans to launch a mid-range electric tractor for farmers and municipal services in 2027. Writing on LinkedIn, he laid out his pitch, a swappable battery system for 24/7 operation, dual driving directions, and compatibility with all standard attachments, including winter equipment, mowers, and loaders. He also says the company is already fully on schedule for product development. Beyond the electric tractor itself, the company plans to develop solar charging stations, electric attachments, and eventually autonomous agriculture machinery. They're already working with an unnamed established agricultural machinery partner in the DACH region and are currently recruiting a global sales director with agriculture experience. Tim, this is like, what are we? Is this 2021? What is happening? This post seems out of this announcement seems like 4 or 5 years removed.
Have we learned nothing, Ty? Like when you sent it to me, I'm just like, why are we doing this again? Like it just seems like not what the market wants. Like this whole like big push on 24/7 like utility. Like I don't think that was like what challenged the sector. Like I don't think the reason why Monarch didn't succeed was the tractors didn't run 24/7. There was reliability issues, durability issues, like claims about the autonomy piece, like the like swappable batteries, and like being able to run a tractor 24/7 just is like not compelling to me as a farmer. It's like you inherently need some downtime, like with overtime rules in California. Like if we had a tractor running 24/7, we're running 3 8-hour shifts to like reduce overtime. It just like seems like a solution looking for a problem.
I agree with you. However, I think that this is always how the pendulum works, right? And I think particularly in ag tech, like a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about for 5+ years in terms of ag tech, robotics, biologicals, laser weeding, right? Like I think that things don't work until they do. Right. And I think like this is a point David Friedberg made I think last year at World Agritech, that a lot of the underlying technology is good, and it's good technology, but it just the product development life cycle in agriculture is so hard, and then the cost of that technology is going down over time. So we're seeing momentum around automation right now and laser weeding, robotics, etc. So I think that it's funny to make it's easy to make fun of this. However, I think at a certain point, one of these things is going to work, right? Like if and I don't know if it's this. I'm probably bearish on this, but I think that because we are coming out of this, coming into a new cycle of ag tech, I think there's going to be some announcements that were like, oh, been there, done that may work. And I think because the cost curves are coming down, the technology is improving, and maybe there's going to be new capital deployed in the space to allow for some of these new startups, the next generation of startups, to be successful. So I think it'll be really, really interesting to watch. I think they talk about swappable batteries. I don't know if that's the silver bullet, but I think that with something like EVs, it has to be a layer beyond just like this. It has to be a function layer beyond just like it's EV. Like that's not enough, right? That's clearly not enough for agriculture. Is there needs to be some other benefit. And this is, I think, in our conversation about Monarch, the point I brought up is there was no clear silver bullet of why a grower needed this. And I think that's what we need for EVs to take off. There needs to be some killer benefit. And maybe that's, I'm in the area of grid services. Maybe it's something with respect to grid services where, growers can monetize their EV in some capacity with respect to grid services, right? Some layer that makes it different. And I don't know if swappable batteries is it, to your point. But that's what I think that space, that sector needs to take off.
very balanced perspective, Ty. One last final thought on this. I'm looking at the original post that Herbert put out. The tractor looks kind of dorky, dude. Like, if you look at the tractor, it looks like a 5-year-old's like toy tractor. Like, I feel like you got to make it look cooler. If that's like your post launching the company, not a big fan of what it looks like.
Run the chatbots search again. Just
yeah, you gotta cycle through a few times. Yeah, like up your usage and get like a little bit better of an AI image. Like, this one looks not cool.
The not cool stamp of approval from Tim. Well, appreciate you guys listening. That was a fun episode. I do really feel like there's some signs pointing to the next chapter of AgTech happening, which I'm excited. Tim, we'll be grizzled veterans if we can kind of get through this, and there'll be another rise of AgTech investing, which will be really exciting for us to follow. And for us to follow on this podcast. So if you care about AgTech, if you care about innovation, sustainability, and agriculture, what the next chapter of agriculture is going to look like, be sure that you're subscribed to this podcast, because we are going to be really your go-to resource for what's happening in AgTech. So subscribe, share with your friends. If you're an AgTech CEO, founder, aspiring founder, hit that subscribe button and make sure you listen every week. Appreciate you guys listening. We will be back next week.